Bruce Mao. I was born between the 25th and the 29th of October, 1959 in Sudbury, Ontario, and I'm a designer. For me, perfect happiness, I guess, is problems. The idea of an unresolved situation. Anything like that, it sort of somehow gets in me a response that I just love to take it on. My greatest fear, I guess, is emptiness, boredom. I have a kind of terrible fear of not having anything to do. The person I most admire has to be my wife, B.C. Williams, who is just an anchor in my life. And I have a very up and down life, and she has a kind of wavelength that is sympathetic with mine, that makes it possible for us to be together. And she's just sort of always a great presence in my life. The characteristic I'm most unhappy about in myself is that I'm not too smart. And that generally affects almost everything I do. The characteristic I most dislike in others is generosity. I think that if more people were more selfish, they would be happier, and I would probably be happier with them. The most overrated virtue, I think, is temperance. I think life is about being extreme, and if you can't take it that way, you know, why are you in the game? I think you got to go all the way. I love living here. The weather here is extraordinary. You spend the entire year here in Toronto in hopes that one day will be kind, but it's a fabulous place in so many other ways. I have to say that these days is the answer. I'm having an absolutely extraordinary time, and it's gone on for about 15 years or so. It really is the present tense for me. I'm most obsessive about everything, and that it's really a kind of shortcoming, because I ought to focus my excessiveness more, but I have the ability to be excessive about practically anything. I lie not too frequently, I hope, but I lie to myself probably most frequently about my own capacities, about my fears. I try in my work to be as honest as possible. In some ways, that's the single most challenging aspect of the work, is simply to maintain honesty. The most satisfaction I get is with my family. I have 3 daughters. Practically every day is just extraordinary. They're young, they're 10, 6, and 4. If I could learn in the way that they can, I'd be a happy man. I think I would say my greatest achievement is the studio. It's the engine that does all the work. In working with Gehry, I was talking to Frank about this, and he said that he thought his greatest design work was his own business. And I always thought that was such a great idea. And I realized that for myself, making the studio makes everything else possible. So in my work, the greatest achievement is the studio. I guess the lowest depth of despair is an inability to take on your own time. I think if I was not willing to grapple with the problems of my own era, I would really be finished. I mean, that would be it for me, I think. I guess my most treasured possession is my library. It's the source of so many aspects of my life. The talent I would most like to have is singing. And it's maybe someday. My favorite word is actually 3 words, and they are the 3 names of my daughters. And my wife is a Nigerian Canadian, so there are 3 Nigerian words, and the sounds are incredibly beautiful. My favorite sound is the sound of my daughters. I guess the thing I most dislike is a lack of beauty. For me, it's not about physical beauty or visual beauty, but a kind of internal beauty, because if that beauty isn't there, it really betrays a lack of commitment to life. I guess the thing I most like is invention, production, people who have an attitude that says, we are going to make things better. I guess the words I live by come from a poem by Rudyard Kipling called If. There's one very beautiful line in the poem, which is, if you can meet with triumph and disaster and treat those two imposters just the same.